Welcome to NTD News Today.
Here are today's top stories.
The president's son, Hunter Biden, arrives in federal court to face gun charges. More on the first ever trial of a child of a sitting president.
Former President Trump isn't letting his convictions slow down his campaign. He receives a standing ovation from the crowd at a UFC event. More on his weekend activities.
Dr. Anthony Fauci testifies publicly for the first time since his retirement in late 2022. What the former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases has to say about the U.S. COVID response, and more.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
Wow, Steph, a lot of firsts in the U.S. Court system right now. The first former president was convicted last week, and now we have the first child of a sitting president to become a criminal defendant.
Yeah, and on that point of former President Trump's conviction, another first, he says that his campaign has raised almost $53 million in just 24 hours following that conviction.
Wow, that criminal conviction seems to be working out pretty well for his campaign.
It does in some ways. All right, to start the show, the criminal trial of Hunter Biden kicks off today in federal court in Delaware.
The president's son faces gun charges in a historic case.
Hunter Biden arrived at the courthouse for the first trial of a child of a sitting president.
He will face 3 felony charges stemming from his purchase and possession of a revolver in 2018.
He has pleaded not guilty. It's one of 2 criminal cases he faces, with federal tax charges brought separately in California.
The trial begins with a jury selection process. Hunter Biden's trial gives Republicans a chance to shift attention away from former President Trump's legal troubles. And former President Trump is in full campaign mode since the historic guilty verdict against him last Thursday. NTD's Daniel Monahan has a recap of Trump's activities, including a fight night appearance.
Trump was loudly applauded at a UFC fighting event in one of his first appearances since the guilty verdict. The mixed martial arts gathering took place in Newark, New Jersey on Saturday night. One of the top bouts saw fighter Sean Strickland win a decision over Paulo Costa. Strickland shouted out President Trump after his victory, shared on X by leading report.
President Trump, you're the man, bro. It is a damn travesty what they're doing to you. I'll be donating to you, my man. Let's get it done.
The president is now on TikTok.
The former president was also busy on social media, joining TikTok. Trump posted a launch video on his account on Saturday night. Within a day, the former president already had 3 million followers. By contrast, the Biden campaign has around 340,000 followers on its TikTok account, which it started in February. The former president's guilty verdict had a silver lining of sorts. The Trump campaign reported raising around $53 million within 24 hours of the historic judgment. Trump also made time for a TV appearance over the weekend. The former commander-in-chief was a guest on Fox and Friends.
But it's like their slogan, I'm a threat to democracy. I'm the opposite. They're the threat to democracy.
The interviewers brought up how sentencing could take place July 11th, just days before the Republican National Convention.
The judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It could.
How do you face what that could look
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh, no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything.
Now for a look at some polls. About 50% of people think the guilty verdict was correct, according to the latest ABC News Ipsos poll. And around 49% feel former President Trump should end his campaign. But around half of Americans also believe that the charges were politically motivated. Feelings about Donald Trump are statistically unchanged from before the verdict was announced. Just 18% of Republicans agree with the guilty verdict, while 83% of Democrats agreed. Among independents, 52% said they agree with the guilty verdict. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Trump leading Biden by just over 0.5%. Trump has vowed to appeal his conviction by the New York jury. If an appeal in New York state courts proves unsuccessful, he could appeal to the Supreme Court. Trump's attorneys would have to persuade at least 4 of the court's 9 justices to hear his case. Up next for former President Trump is a rally in Las Vegas, Nevada on Sunday, June 9th. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And joining us to discuss the latest in Trump's fundraising and more is Janice Heisel, an Epoch Times reporter following the election campaigns closely. Janice, good to see you. To begin with, what are the latest figures in Trump's campaign raising, funds since his conviction, and what are they saying about the scale of it?
According to an interview that Eric Trump, the president's son, gave to Fox News over the weekend, the Trump campaign has actually raised a whopping $200 million. Now, that includes small dollar donations totaling around $70 million, and then the rest would be from big dollar donations, including one that was $100 million.
Wow, that's incredible. And of course, President Biden was asked about Trump's conviction over the weekend. Could you tell us what took place and how the Trump's campaign is responding as well?
Well, President Biden is characterizing this case as being, the jury has spoken, and that he feels that the Republicans are being, quote, reckless in denouncing that verdict. But then the President Trump's campaign is saying, whoa, wait a minute. This thing just seems to be a wash in politics, that this is the type of case that never would have been brought against anyone not named Donald Trump and anyone who is not running for the presidential election against the Democrat president, Joe Biden.
Now, what's the Biden campaign up to after Trump's conviction? Any changes there?
Well, from what I've seen, the Biden campaign is trying to kind of, walk down the line of not making judgments about the actual facts of the case. And Joe Biden does have his own concerns and issues that he's going to have to navigate with his son on trial, as we mentioned earlier, which just started today.
Yeah, for sure. Has he said anything more about that you know of?
Not that I've heard, but I follow the Biden campaign, of course, but Trump is my concentration.
Yeah.
And from what I've been hearing, it doesn't look like that there's been a lot. He's trying to play it very close to the vest from what I've seen, trying to not get into this too much, and kind of letting his campaign and his supporters go out there for him.
Now, back to Trump's campaign, they're set to hold more high-dollar Trump fundraisers next week. And he's also been seeing high registrations at some of his rallies. Tell us more about what's evolving here in his campaign.
This weekend, he is going to be in California for two big fundraisers. I recall seeing an invitation for one of them where you could purchase a table for $250,000. So we're talking some big money again here. We will not be seeing what those totals are until perhaps Sunday, Monday. But in addition to that, as you mentioned, he is going to have a rally in Nevada, Las Vegas. So that particular state is one that is considered kind of a close call. One of the states that of course, both candidates would like to have in their win column. And President Trump has really been concentrating at some of these big rallies in recent weeks on blue states, traditionally states that go to the Democrats, such as New Jersey. Tens of thousands of people showed up in New Jersey. Tens of thousands of people showed up again in the Bronx. So these are some big numbers with people who ordinarily might not be viewed as being in his corner. And there's a lot of noise being made about him, being able to maximize that from the outrage that some people do feel from this conviction.
Absolutely, and we'll be watching all of this closely and have you back on soon, I hope. Thank you so much, Janice Heisel. Great to speak with you.
Thank you.
Up ahead, lawmakers grilled Dr. Anthony Fauci just days after one of his former advisors admitted to deleting emails. Potential clues in the search for the origins of COVID-19.
Tangazo hili linahusu njaa. Tarajia kuona watoto wakiwa na njaa katika maeneo haya. Mambo yalikuwa bora kwa miaka mingi. Tuliweza kupigana na njaa na watoto wachache walikufa. Lakini sasa mambo yamebadilika na kwa mabaya zaidi. Hii ni kwa sababu wakati huu ukame umeangamiza zaidi.
Через війни та конфлікти ми мусимо залишати наші домівки і всі наші речі. Ми навіть не маємо їжі. Тому нам потрібна ваша допомога.
Millions of children are fighting to survive due to inequality, conflict, poverty, and the climate crisis. Save the Children is working alongside communities to provide a better life for children. And there's a way you can help. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We urgently need 1,000 new monthly donors in the next 30 days to help the children we support around the world. You can help provide food, medicine, care, and protection, plus so much more that a child needs, by calling right now and giving just $10 a month.
Ви можете допомогти голодуючим родинам вижити.
और बच्चों को भूख से मरने से रोक सकते हैं.
All we need are 1,000 monthly donors in the next 30 days. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
Toto kote duniani
потребують вашої допомоги.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Please call or go online to hungerstopsnow.org to help save lives today.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, there was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
Join us on NTD Good Morning, because we want you to stay informed.
Kickstart your morning with the latest you missed overnight.
Right, and don't forget that inspiration.
Absolutely, so let's shine some light on the good news too.
Tune in every weekday morning to NTD News.
Welcome back. Former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Anthony Fauci is testifying right now after revelations from his former advisor's testimony.
Dr. David Morins bragged about learning how to make emails disappear after Freedom of Information Act requests are filed, potentially shielding agency info from public eyes.
So let's tune into that House Oversight Committee hearing now.
Policy the U.S. has ever seen, including mask mandates, school closures, coerced vaccination, social distancing of 6 feet, and more. We've learned many lessons. Our early fear and confusion was understandable. COVID-19 was clearly a novel virus. Under your leadership, NIAID allowed disgraced characters like Dr. Peter Daszak to use millions in taxpayer dollars to conduct risky gain-of-function experiments in Wuhan, China. The actions of EcoHealth and Dr. Daszak call into question the integrity of NIAID's policies and procedures as a whole, as well as your role, Dr. Fauci, as NIAID's director. You did sign off on his research grant. We need to know why Dr. David Morins, your direct report for more than 2 decades, assisted Dr. Daszak in avoiding oversight and scrutiny, and said that you were involved. Your senior advisor, and seemingly your chief of staff, repeatedly attempted to evade transparency laws to shield information from public scrutiny. We have senior officials from your office in their own writing discussing breaking federal law, deleting official records, and sharing private government information with grant recipients. The office you directed and those serving under your leadership chose to flout the law and bragged about it. Why did you allow your office to be unaccountable to the American people? You were the highest paid person in the government. This makes you more accountable to the people, not less. Dr. Fauci, whether intentional or not, you became so powerful that any disagreements the public had with you were forbidden and censored on social and most legacy media time and time again. This is why so many Americans became so angry, because this was fundamentally un-American. If I make a mistake, I answer to the people of Ohio who elected me and to my own conscience. When you and your agency made mistakes, Dr. Fauci, what happened? We all need to be held accountable. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, we were wrong. You took the position that you presented the science. Your words came across to so many people as final and as infallible in matters pertaining to the pandemic. But such rigid demands of an ideologically diverse people, like Americans, shattered public trust in American health institutions. Because I said so has never been good enough for Americans, and it never will be. It's built into the American spirit. We have a thirst for information, a drive for advancement. Americans were first in flight. We landed on the moon. We've cured diseases. You've been part of that. And we made innumerable discoveries and explorations that forever changed humanity. Americans do not want to be indoctrinated. They want to be educated. And they prefer to make their health decisions in conjunction with the doctor that they know and trust. To be successful, our federal public health institutions must be accountable to the people again. To be successful, our health organizations must do what they are supposed to do: protect Americans. I look forward to a robust and on-topic discussion. I thank you. I would now like to recognize Ranking Member Ruiz for the purpose of making an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Dr. Fauci, and thank you for being here. When I was named ranking member of the Select Subcommittee last February, I made a commitment to follow the facts and objectively analyzing the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. I made a promise to keep an open mind about how the pandemic started, because understanding whether the novel coronavirus emerged from a lab or from nature is essential to better preventing and preparing for future public health threats and to better protecting the American people. And as the origins of the novel coronavirus still remain inconclusive, I stand by these commitments to this day. But nearly a year and a half into House Republicans' extreme and chaotic majority, I believe we need to take stock of what the Select Subcommittee has accomplished and whether it has meaningfully improved our preparedness for the next public health threat in our nation. Under the guise of investigating the pandemic's origins, House Republicans have abdicated their responsibility to objectively examine how COVID-19 came to be, and instead weaponized concern about a lab-related origin to fuel sentiment against our nation's scientists and public health officials for partisan gain. They have done so with one particular public health official in mind, Dr. Anthony Fauci. And they have done so in an effort to deflect blame and anguish for the damage the pandemic inflicted on our society away from the former president, whose stumbling pandemic response, by some estimates, led to 400,000 unnecessary COVID-19 deaths, and on to Dr. Fauci, who worked tirelessly to stem the crisis. Over the past 15 months, the Select Subcommittee has pored over more than 425,000 pages of documents provided to us by government agencies, universities, and private citizens. We have conducted more than 100 hours of closed-door interviews with 20 current and former federal officials and scientists. And what we have found is the following. Dr. Fauci did not fund research through the EcoHealth Alliance grant that caused the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Fauci did not lie about gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China. And Dr. Fauci did not orchestrate a campaign to suppress the lab leak theory. After 15 months, the Select Subcommittee still does not possess a shred of evidence to substantiate these extreme allegations that Republicans have levied against Dr. Fauci for nearly 4 years. Now I want to make something very clear. In the past month, the Select Subcommittee has held hearings where we have examined various serious issues of misconduct. In following the facts, Select Subcommittee Democrats uncovered troubling misconduct by Dr. Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance, including potential efforts to mislead the federal government about the nature of its work through the evasion of reporting and transparency requirements. And less than 2 weeks ago, we heard from Dr. David Morin's about his flagrant violation of the Freedom of Information Act's transparency requirements and the potential destruction of federal records. Both Dr. Daszak and Dr. Morin's deserve to be held accountable for betraying the public's trust. To hold them accountable is not anti-science. It is the defense of our federal scientific and research institutions' decades-long legacy of advancing the scientific enterprise to safeguard human health. But baselessly suggesting without evidence that these discrete instances of misconduct are equivalent to our nation's scientists and public health officials causing the COVID-19 pandemic, which has killed more than 1 million Americans and inflicted an immeasurable toll on our society, is also a betrayal of the public's trust, which each of us are stewards of as elected members of this body. Today's hearing comes at a pivotal moment for our nation's public health. With the darkest days of the COVID-19 pandemic behind us, thanks to the Biden administration's leadership, we are now faced with a crisis of declining confidence in the very science and public health interventions that lifted our society from one of the most challenging periods in our nation's history. And as we look to the future, we find ourselves at a fork in the road. We can go down the path of fueling mistrust in the interventions that saved us, like vaccines, masking, and social distancing, and the public health officials like Dr. Fauci, who worked tirelessly and with extremely limited and evolving information about a novel virus to save lives during one of the greatest crises of our time. Or we can work constructively on the forward-looking policies and solutions that we know are necessary to prevent and better prepare us for the public health threats that are yet to come. Since my first day as ranking member, I set out to take the latter path, the path of putting people over politics and prioritizing solutions to better prepare us for the next pandemic. And it has been my hope that Republicans would join Democrats in the forward-looking work that will better protect our constituents. Strengthening oversight of potentially risky research domestically and abroad is an essential part of this conversation, and so is closing pathways for zoonotic transfers of viruses in nature and investing in our public health infrastructure to ensure that when future viruses arrive, we are ready. When Democrats were in the majority, we made important strides in these objectives by passing the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, which strengthened the protections against undue influence in our biomedical research, improved training and transparency for the handling of select agents, paved the way for the interagency collaboration to fortify zoonotic disease prevention, invested in our infectious disease workforce, and enhanced our supply chain preparedness and ability to rapidly develop and deploy medical countermeasures. And ahead of today's hearing, more than 90 health and medical organizations, including the American Public Health Association, the American College of Physicians, the American Academy of Family Physicians, the Infectious Disease Society of America, the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials, and the National Association of County and City Health Officials wrote to the Select Subcommittee urging us to, quote, stand against efforts to weaken the ability of the nation's public health agencies to protect the nation's health, and to take...
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shenyun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
Hi, I'm Kelly Wright. We thank you for joining us and watching America's Hope here on NTD News. Bottom line is, I know you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but let's give you some good news in the midst of the bad news. Watch us nightly, right here on NTD News, for a full dose of America's Hope.
And we're coming back to Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying before the House Oversight Committee. This is his first public testimony since retiring in late 2022.
Earlier this year, he testified for 14 hours over 2 days about his role in managing the pandemic response, making pandemic-era policies, and shaping public messaging about the origins of COVID-19.
Let's watch.
14 years, and the scale of the effort to evade FOIA by some at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, or NIAID, has surprised even me. These men were among your most senior and trusted staff at an agency you led for nearly 40 years. They worked for you for decades. Your calendars show that you met with them multiple times a week during the pandemic. You co-authored dozens of papers with Dr. Morenz. He directly implicates you. Even the head of the NIAID FOIA office was apparently in on some of this conspiracy. And I know my colleagues on the other side love to say we're always talking conspiracy, but when the facts lead you there, whether you knew about it or not, when the facts lead you that your agency was involved in some form of a conspiracy related to COVID origins, we have to follow those facts. It is hard to believe that all of this occurred without your knowledge and or approval. In civil law, When one party has destroyed or refuses to produce evidence that's within its possession, a jury is allowed to draw an adverse inference that the information destroyed or not produced was unfavorable. Therefore, until we get a full accounting of all of the communications among NIAID's leadership, it's reasonable for us to assume that missing information would mirror the private doubts expressed by so many virologists and other scientists related to your public positions. While telling the public, the media, and Congress that COVID-19 almost certainly emerged from nature, experts you convened as a team privately worried that a research-related incident was a possible, if not the probable, origin of the virus. Dr. Christian Anderson even said in February of 2020, quote, "I think the main thing still in my mind is that the lab escape version of this is so friggin' likely to have happened because they were already doing this type of work and molecular data is fully consistent with that scenario." Further, while you and other NIAID officials were assuring us that the virus could not have come from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, NIAID didn't actually have an idea as to what the full scope of Wuhan's coronavirus research was, or even the trajectory of its gain-of-function research. Now, that may be because EcoHealth wasn't giving you the reports. I grant that. But this joint investigation has shown just how little oversight NIAID does of risky experiments involving potential pandemic pathogens. NIAID set up a system designed to greenlight potentially risky experiments while avoiding HHS department-level review. The same program officers who act as advocates for their scientific area are responsible for assessing whether an experiment is too dangerous. That creates a conflict of interest. I think that means that when an agency is taking the final approval, we ought to take that final approval away from the agencies like NIAID that fund it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I now recognize Ms. Castor for a 3-minute statement, and I will oblige you an extra 30 seconds as well.
Well, thank you, Dr. Fauci, for your appearance today and for your decades of service to our country. During your 39 years at the helm of America's leading health research institute, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, you tackled some of the most serious health threats, including AIDS, Zika, Ebola, SARS-CoV-1, and COVID-19. Your leadership and service to Republican and Democratic administrations and all Americans saved countless lives and resources. We owe you a debt of gratitude. While the evidence to date points to COVID-19 having originated from an animal market in China, the Chinese Communist Party has blocked access to important information that could help confirm the origin of the virus. This committee should be doing more to fight for those answers, but instead has wasted significant time and taxpayer money fueling conspiracy theories and ignoring the importance of preparing for the next deadly pandemic. Some GOP members falsely claimed you secretly broke into CIA headquarters and coerced analysts. Others claimed that you committed crimes. America's adversaries like China, Russia, and Iran love it when Americans are divided and distracted. It provided fertile ground for the spread of misinformation about COVID-19 by our adversaries. And unfortunately, fringe far-right conspiracy theories have permeated even mainstream media outlets, and some Republican members of Congress have played along. I regret that many of the conspiracies have smeared you, Dr. Fauci, as you and our top scientists did everything to keep Americans safe during the deadly days of COVID-19. Over 1.1 million Americans lost their lives to COVID-19, and today it's still more deadly than the flu. As we learned from Zika and Ebola, the ways viruses are transmitted are not obvious at first, and the development of treatments and vaccines takes time. What you and your team did to speed the development of the safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine was remarkable. That fast timeline was only possible due to years of federal investment in the National Institute of Health and support for medical research in the United States. So one of the lessons learned from the pandemic is the need to continue to invest in medical health research in the U.S. for cancer, for heart disease, for diabetes, but also to prepare for the next pandemic. We must learn from the past so that we can keep Americans safe. That's why Democrats have worked hard to update America's pandemic preparedness law, the Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Act, to shore up public health and make us more prepared to tackle the next pandemic threat. It's not too late for Republicans to join us and turn the least productive Congress in modern history into one where we are all focused on solutions for the American people to make our country safer and stronger. Democrats were able to prevent harmful rollbacks in medical research last year, and I urge my GOP colleagues to join us and move away from threatening and undermining American medical research at every turn. Public health threats are constantly emerging. In the past month alone, we have been tracking new strains and variants of H5N1, Mpox, and SARS-CoV-2. Dr. Fauci, I'm sorry for the personal attacks you have received and may have to deal with today. But while you are here, I want you to know that the vast majority of Americans appreciate your work over the years. I look forward to continuing to learn from you, to learn everything possible about how we can take the pandemic lessons learned and put them to use to help keep our communities safe and healthy. Thank you, and I yield back my time.
Thank you. Our witness today is Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci was the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases from 1984 to 2022 and chief medical advisor to President Joe Biden from 2021 to 2022. Pursuant to Committee on Oversight and Accountability Rule 9G, the witness will please stand and raise his right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Let the record show that the witness answered in the affirmative. The Select Subcommittee certainly appreciates you for being here today, and we look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witness that we have read your written statement, and it will appear in full in the hearing record. As requested, please limit your oral statement to 6 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 5 minutes, the light will turn yellow, and when the red light comes on, your 6 minutes has expired, and we would ask that you please wrap up. I now recognize Dr. Fauci to give an opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Ruiz, members of the subcommittee, thank you for this opportunity to testify. Prior to my retirement from federal service in December 2022, I had been at the NIH for 54 years and director of NIAID for more than 38 years. In those posts, I was deeply involved in the scientific and public health response to several infectious diseases outbreaks, including HIV/AIDS, pandemic flu, Ebola, and Zika. And so, under my leadership, we were well positioned to respond to COVID-19. For at least 2 decades prior to the COVID outbreak, we at NIAID had invested billions of dollars in research on mRNA technology and immunogen design, both of which led to the swift development of COVID vaccines. Less than 11 months after the identification of this new virus, safe and highly effective vaccines were widely available, an unprecedented accomplishment in the history of vaccinology that saved tens of millions of lives worldwide. I will now use my remaining time to directly address certain issues that have been seriously distorted concerning me. The first issue concerns my actions regarding the possibility that SARS-CoV-2 might have resulted from a lab leak. On January 31st, 2020, I was informed through phone calls with Jeremy Farrar, then director of the Wellcome Trust in the UK, and then with Christian Anderson, a highly regarded scientist at Scripps Research Institute, that they and Eddie Holmes, a world-class evolutionary biologist from Australia, were concerned that the genomic sequence of SARS-CoV-2 suggested that the virus could have been manipulated in a lab. I participated.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
All right, I'm at the house, and I'm gonna head inside. Okay, come on, this door. I'm in the house.
What do you see?
Let me check the den. There's nothing in the den. Let me check the kitchen. There's no one downstairs, it looks like.
Wait, what was that?
I don't know. Let me head upstairs.
What do you see?
What the? Did you shut this bathroom door?
No.
Oh,
What?
It's not here.
What do you mean?
The gun's not here.
What? Where is it?
Oh my God.
What's going on?
Cam.
Oh my God, what's going
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam, please, please, open the door, Cameron. Come on, Cam.
I'm Iris Tao at the White House, and we are NTD.
Welcome back. Dr. Anthony Fauci is testifying publicly for the first time since retiring in 2022.
It was recently revealed that his former advisor bragged about learning how to make emails disappear after Freedom of Information Act requests are filed, potentially shielding agency information from public eyes.
This hearing will focus on that, as well as Dr. Fauci's role in the COVID-19 pandemic response.
Let's tune back in.
Thank you. I now recognize myself for as much time as I may consume for questions, with equal time being afforded to the ranking member. Dr. Fauci, February 1, 2020, you were on a call with Dr. Farrar, Dr. Collins, and other scientists regarding the potential that COVID-19 was engineered. Was CDC Director Redfield on that call?
No, he was not.
Okay. Dr. Fauci, you've said that you had to rely on virologists and evolutionary biologists regarding origins because you're not an expert. Is Dr. Redfield a virologist?
I believe he is. Yeah.
He is. Prior to the pandemic, NIAID awarded at least 3 grants via the New York Blood Center to Dr. Zhao Yusen. Are you aware of these?
I'm sorry, to Dr.
Yusen Zhao. Are you aware of those grants? Dr. Yusen Zhao. Your microphone is not on, Doctor. Your microphone is not on.
I'm not familiar with that name.
Okay. Well, NIAID awarded at least 3 grants via the New York Blood Center to that that scientist. He was a high-ranking Chinese PLA official and director of a lab at the Chinese Academy of Military Medical Sciences. Does it concern you if U.S. taxpayer dollars are funding someone like this?
Grants that are submitted to the NIAID go through a very extensive...
Does it concern you? I'm not talking about the process
Well, I don't know
Does it
anything
concern you that that U.S. taxpayer dollars would be going to someone who's a high-ranking Chinese PLA official? Yes or no?
I would have to know more about that, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
because I don't even
Well,
know
it
the
concerns
person
me.
you're talking about.
Are you or were you ever aware that the U.S. State Department in 2005 issued warnings that the Chinese government was working on the creation of bioweapons?
I was not aware of that.
Thank you. Did you ever discuss the Chinese bioweapons program with anyone in the intelligence community?
I've never discussed the Chinese bioweapons program, to my knowledge, with anybody.
Before, during, or after the COVID-19 pandemic, did you speak to the FBI, CIA, DIA, or any U.S. intelligence agency concerning viral research of any kind?
What time frame are you talking about, sir?
I said before, during, or after the COVID-19 pandemic. Did you speak to the FBI, CIA, DIA, or any U.S. intelligence agency concerning viral research of any kind?
I can't give you the specifics of it, but back in the time of the anthrax attacks, we certainly had a number of briefings of by agencies that were intelligence agencies. I don't remember who they were. It could have been any of the above that you mentioned, about the possibility that there were bioweapons that had fallen into the hands of bad actors, i.e. terrorists, that might have been used potentially as a bioterror attack. That was at a time when we had thought that the anthrax attacks...
I appreciate that. I appreciate your expertise in that.
Well, that's the answer.
But did you at any time talk concerning viral research of any kind?
Again, I say that at the time that there was concern about the fact that Al-Qaeda may have been using or potentially using bioweapons, we had discussions with intelligence agencies about that possibility.
But not as related to, say, COVID-19?
Not to my knowledge about COVID. Now, but let me just make sure we get the facts. After the investigations began about COVID, I was briefed by intelligence agencies about possibilities of there being activities going on in different laboratories. I was briefed by intelligence agencies.
Thank you. Science is always open to debate, and it's a benefit. The science supported restricting travel from certain countries at the beginning of the pandemic. And after these orders went into effect, the president was called racist and xenophobic. Dr. Fauci, you said in your transcribed interview that you supported those orders. Dr. Fauci, were those orders racist and xenophobic?
No, they were not.
Thank you. The vaccine saved millions of lives, and I want to thank you for your support and engagement on that. However, despite statements to the contrary, it did not stop transmission of the virus. Did the COVID vaccine stop transmission of the virus?
That is a complicated issue because in the beginning, the first iteration of the vaccines did have an effect, not 100%, not a high effect. They did prevent infection and subsequently, obviously, transmission. However, it's important to point out something that we did not know early on that became evident as the months went by, is that the durability of protection against infection and hence transmission was relatively limited, whereas the duration of protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and deaths was more prolonged. We did not know that in the beginning. In the beginning, it was felt that, in fact, it did prevent infection and thus transmission, but that was proven as time went by to not be a durable effect.
Yeah, it definitely had a positive effect for many people, especially those that were vulnerable. But we knew from the trials that people that got vaccinated still were subject to getting COVID. So was the COVID vaccine 100% effective?
I don't believe any vaccine is 100% effective.
I now recognize the ranking member, Dr. Reeves from California, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. Over the past year and a half, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have relentlessly vilified Dr. Fauci under the guise of investigating the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. But after reviewing nearly 500,000 pages of documents, conducting 20 closed-door interviews, and receiving testimony from nearly a dozen witnesses brought before this select subcommittee for public hearings, they have come up empty-handed for evidence of their extreme allegations that Dr. Fauci lied about gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and caused the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'd like to address both of the Republican claims in turn. Throughout the majority's investigation, the Select Subcommittee has heard 3 definitions for gain-of-function research. Of the 3, Republicans have relied heavily on an overly broad definition that has no regulatory significance. Let me repeat that. No regulatory significance. In fact, their definition is so broad that it would include the manufacture of flu vaccines as gain of function. Because it is so broad, the National Institute of Health does not use that definition when assessing whether proposed research is or is not, quote-unquote, gain of function research. For those assessments, NIH has instead appropriately used the definitions provided in regulations. And to be clear, the Select Subcommittee has been reminded by witnesses after witness that NIH at all times referred to regulations for the definition of gain-of-function research, and not to a nebulous, expansive definition with no legal bearing that is so broad it could apply to, again, the manufacturing of flu vaccines. Dr. Fauci, according to the regulatory definitions, for example, in P3CO, that NIH applied to proposed research, did NIH ever fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China?
As you said, Congressman Ruiz, according to the regulatory and operative definition of P3CO, the NIH did not fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Thank you. And despite my Republican colleagues' effort to fit a square peg into a round hole, it seems to me that you've been consistent on this issue from the beginning of the pandemic. And they know this, but they still use the terms gain of function loosely. And with respect to NIAID staff's assessments of whether proposed research was or was not gain-of-function research, were you personally involved in those assessments, or were those assessments made several levels removed from you and by subject matter experts?
Those assessments were done by highly qualified and experienced program people several levels below me.
Thank you. And your public statements that NIH did not fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan reflected the assessments made by NIAID subject matter experts applying a definition found in the regulation known as the P3CO framework. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, and thank you for clarifying that. In fact, all of that is abundantly clear in your 2021 Senate testimony on this matter. When asked by the Senate about gain-of-function research, you testified, quote, "That is why we have committees. We have a P3CO committee." You also testified in 2021, quote, "Gain-of-function is a very nebulous term. We have spent, not us, but outside bodies, a considerable amount of effort to give a more precise definition to the type of research that is of concern that might lead to a dangerous situation." You are aware of that. That is called P3CO. That was back in 2021. At the time of your May 2021 testimony, P3CO had been the operative definition of gain-of-function research for several years, correct?
That is correct.
So I will note that at your transcribed interview in January, the majority conceded that NIH did not fund research in Wuhan that met the criteria of P3CO. I encourage the audience to read the transcript of that interview so you can evaluate the merit of majority's claims for yourselves. So now, if we could quickly turn to the irresponsible and false accusation that you created SARS-CoV-2, the virus responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. So this accusation centers on a grant NIAID awarded to EcoHealth Alliance with a subaward to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And we have been entertained earlier about the suggestion that this funding could have possibly gone to a bioweapons research capacity as well. So I want to be clear, no evidence provided to the Select Subcommittee demonstrates that the work performed under NIH funding, including at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, led to the creation of SARS-CoV-2. The majority has failed to demonstrate or even credibly suggest that any of the viruses studied under the grant could even possibly have been the progenitor virus. Dr. Fauci, could you briefly explain why none of the viruses studied under the EcoHealth Alliance grant could have been the progenitor virus of the SARS-CoV-2?
When you're talking about the evolution of a virus from one to another, the viruses that were studied under the subaward to the Wuhan Institute that have been reported in progress reports in the literature and published papers, those viruses were phylogenetically so far removed from SARS-CoV-2 that it is molecularly impossible for those viruses to have evolved or being made into SARS-CoV-2. It's just a virological fact. They were so far removed.
For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
And stay with us. We'll bring you more news in the next 2 hours.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, ride your bike.
If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it.
If you're happy and you know it, smile big and bright.
Thousands of kids just like me are happy every day.
And it's all because of generous people like you who support Shriners Hospitals for Children every month.
All you have to do is call the number on your screen or go online to loveshriners.org right now with your monthly gift.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children is able to make an everyday miracle happen for kids like me.
If you're happy and you know it, dance around. If you're happy and you know it, play a song.
If you're happy and you know it, and your face will surely show it.
If you're happy and you know it, take a shot.
And when you call or go online right now to donate $19 a month or more, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of all the smiles you're bringing to kids' faces every day.
Will today be the day you send your love to the rescue?
When you call the number on your screen right now and give as little as $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you'll be making a life-changing difference for a child, just like Sarah.
Your monthly gift today could change your life forever.
Because of you.
We are happy and we know it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please call or go online right now to give. If operators are busy, please wait patiently or go to loveshriners.org right away.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then a second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours. and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
Welcome to NTD News Today.
Here are today's top stories.
Hunter Biden's historic gun trial begins in Delaware. Learn more about what's happening both inside the courtroom and outside.
What's next after the unprecedented conviction of former President Trump? A criminal defense attorney breaks it down for us, including how the Supreme Court could be involved.
And Dr. Anthony Fauci testifies publicly for the first time since his retirement in 2022. What he has to say about the U.S. COVID-19 response and potential cover-up of key information about the virus origins.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
So it seems like guns are in focus this morning. We've had that shootout with the cops in Queens trying to chase down an illegal immigrant associated with a series of crimes, but also the first son. Jury selection is beginning in his federal gun case.
Yeah, and in Trump's case, constitutional attorney Mark Levin is actually saying that Trump could bypass the New York Supreme Court system to appeal directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. So that should be pretty interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, for sure. And topping the show, 2 New York City police officers shot in Queens, as we mentioned, by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela, according to authorities.
The officers were investigating crime patterns involving motorized scooters.
They observed a male suspect drive a moped the wrong way on 82nd Street near 23rd Avenue and attempted to pull him over. The suspect then fled on foot, and the officers began a foot pursuit, which led for several blocks. During the pursuit, the suspect fired multiple rounds at our officers, who then returned fire.
One officer was shot in the chest, where his bulletproof vest saved him from serious injury. Another was shot in the leg. Both are in stable condition. The officers returned fire and shot the fleeing man in his ankle.
The suspect is wanted in connection with a series of crimes, but he was never arrested. He was taken into custody following the shooting. Police say he was staying at a migrant shelter in Queens after illegally crossing the border down in Eagle Pass, Texas.
And a developing situation with President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. His gun trial kicked off earlier this morning in Wilmington, Delaware. Jury selection is currently underway at the U.S. District Court. The two sides need to select 12 jurors and 4 alternatives. About 250 prospective jurors could be called in. The process could last a day or two.
Hunter Biden is facing 3 charges related to possessing a gun while using narcotics. He's pleaded not guilty. The entire trial is expected to last about 2 weeks.
Several Biden family members are in the courthouse today, including First Lady Jill Biden, the president's daughter Ashley Biden, and Hunter Biden's wife Melissa Cohen.
In a statement this morning, President Biden said, quote, "As the president, I don't and won't comment on pending federal cases. But as a dad, I have boundless love for my son, confidence in him, and respect for his strength." Former President Trump is in full campaign mode since the historic guilty verdict against him last Thursday. NTD's Daniel Monahan has a recap of Trump's activities, including a fight night appearance.
Trump was loudly applauded at a UFC fighting event in one of his first appearances since the guilty verdict. The mixed martial arts gathering took place in Newark, New Jersey on Saturday night. One of the top bouts saw fighter Sean Strickland win a decision over Paulo Costa. Strickland shouted out President Trump after his victory, shared on X by leading report.
"President Trump, you're the man, bro. It is a damn travesty what they're doing to you. I'll be donating to you, my man. Let's get it done."
The president is now on TikTok. The former president was also busy on social media, joining TikTok. Trump posted a launch video on his account on Saturday night. Within a day, the former president already had 3 million followers. By contrast, the Biden campaign has around 340,000 followers on its TikTok account, which it started in February. The former president's guilty verdict had a silver lining of sorts. The Trump campaign reported raising around $53 million within 24 hours of the historic judgment. Trump also made time for a TV appearance over the weekend. The former commander-in-chief was a guest on Fox and Friends.
But it's like their slogan, I'm a threat to democracy. I'm the opposite. They're the threat to democracy.
The interviewers brought up how sentencing could take place July 11th, just days before the Republican National Convention.
The judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It
How
could.
do you face what that could
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh, no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything.
Now for a look at some polls. About 50% of people think the guilty verdict was correct, according to the latest ABC News Ipsos poll. And around 49% feel former President Trump should end his campaign. But around half of Americans also believe that the charges were politically motivated. Feelings about Donald Trump are statistically unchanged from before the verdict was announced. Just 18% of Republicans agree with the guilty verdict, while 83% of Democrats agreed. Among independents, 52% said they agree with the guilty verdict. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Trump leading Biden by just over 0.5%. Trump has vowed to appeal his conviction by the New York jury. If an appeal in New York state courts proves unsuccessful, he could appeal to the Supreme Court. Trump's attorneys would have to persuade at least 4 of the court's 9 justices to hear his case. Up next for former President Trump is a rally in Las Vegas, Nevada on Sunday, June 9th. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Next, we have criminal defense attorney Dwayne Cates on Trump's guilty verdict. Great to have you, Dwayne. Now that you've had Friday and the weekend to mull over Trump's guilty verdict, what are you thinking about it? How, upon further inspection there?
Well, watch what you wish for, because I think this is actually helping Trump. While there was 53 million in the first 24 hours, I think there's been well over 100 million since the verdict, and it's been a fundraising boom. He's going to get sentenced. And I think the worst thing they could do is disrupt the Republican National Committee. The conference, because I think that the American public wouldn't react well if they put Trump in jail and he couldn't attend.
And now critics of Judge Merchan are saying he set the jury up to find Trump guilty. They're citing the jury instructions. Explain how the jury instructions could have impacted the verdict and whether you think there's any merit to this criticism we're hearing about.
Well, the judge is in charge of telling the jury what the law is in the case. And he did a poor job of doing that. At some point, he should have told the jury that hush money payments aren't illegal. Okay, so that was that never came out. That should have been an instruction that the judge gave. And there were numerous instances of things that the judge instructed on that were just not correct, and those are ripe for appeal.
Now, we know Trump's sentencing date is July 11th, but when could he appeal and on what grounds?
Well, he has 30 days from the date he's sentenced to appeal. And I don't think it will take that long. The appeal is simply a one-page notice of appeal that needs to be filed. That'll probably be filed the day after he's sentenced. That starts a ball rolling, but the appeal is going to take a year or more unless he can get an expedited review, which is pretty rare. There's so it would take me a half hour to go through all the appellate issues in this case. There are so many. I mean, they didn't let his expert witness testify. The jury instructions were faulty. They let Stormy Daniels go on and on about a salacious sexual encounter that she signed a paper that said never happened. And that had nothing to do with the charges, absolutely nothing to do with the charges, should never have come in. There are so many things here that there is no way this isn't going to get overturned on appeal.
Okay, and Dwayne, constitutional attorney Mark Levin is saying that Trump could bypass the New York court system and appeal straight to the Supreme Court of the U.S. How would that even work?
Well, I mean, he would have to file a writ with the Supreme Court and explain why he thinks he needs to bypass the New York Court of Appeals, which is pretty obvious because, you know, it appears that the New York court system's bent against Donald Trump. And so he could ask that the Supreme Court take it up. Now, again, you know, they would have to agree. They don't have to take it up. The Supreme Court never has to take any case. And so, you know, this is, you know, the normal process is you appeal to the state appellate court. And then if you lose there, you appeal to the state Supreme Court. And then when you lose there, then you can go to ask the United States Supreme Court to look at it. But there are instances where you can bypass that process.
Okay, and how might the U.S. Supreme Court approach this case should they eventually see it? I know they could be seeing a lot of different appeal options, but...
Well, I mean, one of the reasons they might take it up is that it's going to have, you know, it can have, you know, implications in the election. And so they may want to resolve this issue prior to the election, which if it goes through the state system, there's no way that's going to happen. So, you know, they could see this as an exigent circumstance and go ahead and try to, you know, to resolve this, you know, shortcut this. But, you know, again, that's a big ask for the United States Supreme Court.
All right. Criminal defense attorney Dwayne Cates, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And up ahead, Dr. Anthony Fauci testifies publicly today after his former advisor bragged about making emails disappear. We'll bring you the House Oversight hearing about the origins of COVID-19 and the pandemic policy after the break.
I had a pretty normal mom life. Everything was pretty good, and it was a very happy life.
And we just had a new baby. And then all of a sudden, within a day or two, she's on life support and fighting for her life.
And I knew something was pretty wrong. A little less than a week after I came home, I couldn't breathe. That's when we decided to go to the hospital. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
And the American Heart Association helped make that possible. Their research helped save me.
This could not happen without monthly donations from friends like you. Your sustained support helps fund life-saving research that leads to medical breakthroughs, like those that gave Jen a second chance at life. Heart disease is the #1 killer in America, and we urgently need your help to save lives. Go to helpheart.org or call now to become a monthly donor today. Your donation of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, will make a difference through prevention, early detection, treatments, and cures that help save lives.
I am very thankful for the American Heart Association. I'm grateful for just every day that I get with my children.
Please go to helpheart.org or call now with your donation of just $19 a month. Join our community of monthly donors, and you'll get this limited edition t-shirt you could wear to show you're helping save lives.
One simple act today can save your life or the life of a loved one.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor today, and your first month's gift will be matched.
We've been spending a lot more time than ever at home these days. So maybe now you've just noticed cold air coming in from a couple windows, or that your patio door isn't closing fully, which means you're losing heat in the winter, losing cooling in the summer, losing money all year long. And that means now is the time for new windows and patio doors from Renewal by Andersen. Most installations are usually done in just one day. Renewal by Andersen windows and doors can help lower your heating bills and air conditioning bills with their most energy efficient glass available. Only their windows are made with Fibrex material, proven to be 2 times stronger than vinyl, and they're backed by a 20-year warranty. And right now, when you buy one window or patio door, get one at 40% off. Plus, there's no money down, no payments for 12 months, and no interest for 12 months. Plus, an additional $200 off your entire purchase.
1-800-968-1443.
Hi, I'm Kelly Wright. We thank you for joining us and watching America's Hope here on NTD News. Bottom line is, I know you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but let's give you some good news in the midst of the bad news. Watch us nightly, right here on NTD News, for a full dose of America's Hope.
Former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Anthony Fauci is testifying right now after revelations from his former advisor's testimony.
Dr. David Morens bragged about learning how to make emails disappear after Freedom of Information Act requests are filed, potentially shielding agency info from public eyes.
So let's tune into that House Oversight Committee hearing now.
Words over Twitter to gin up conspiracies about NIH's role in the origins of the pandemic. In the lead up to this hearing, parts of that interview have again been cherry-picked and distorted in press releases and tweets. So, Dr. Fauci, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to publicly clear anything up. Does anything come top of mind right off the bat in how they cherry-picked parts of your 14-hour transcript?
I don't want to be casting stones at the distortions of what was said in that, but, you know, there are a couple of things that come to mind. You know, one I'm sure is going to come up later is the issue of the 6-foot distance. And I made the statement that it just appeared, and that got taken at like, I don't know what's going on, it just appeared. It actually came from the CDC. The CDC was responsible for those kinds of guidelines for schools, not me. So when I said that it just appeared, it appeared. Was there any science behind it? What I meant by no science behind it is that there wasn't a controlled trial that said, compare 6 foot with 3 feet with 10 feet. So there wasn't that scientific evaluation of it. What I believe the CDC used for their reason to say 6 feet is that studies years ago showed that when you're dealing with droplets, which at the time that the CDC made that recommendation, it was felt that the transmission was primarily through droplet, not aerosol, which is incorrect because we know now aerosol does play a role. That's the reason why they did it. It had little to do with me since I didn't make the recommendation, and my saying there was no science behind it means there was no clinical trial that proved that. That's just one of the things that got a little distorted in the response to that.
And I've learned and watched you over the years. I have to go back to the Zika outbreak where we didn't know how exactly it was being transmitted, and at one point we weren't aware that some of it was sexually transmitted. That's an example of why, with these public health threats, that you learn unfortunately as we go along. Talk a little bit about the Zika health threat and how that we didn't know what was happening in the early days. Your microphone.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up because it really is also reflective of what went on in the early months of COVID. When you're dealing with an outbreak that's a novel outbreak, the Zika outbreak that caused microcephaly was novel. We have never seen that before. COVID was novel. We'd never seen that before. When you're dealing with a new outbreak, things change. The scientific process collects the information that will allow you at that time to make a determination, a recommendation, or a guideline. As things evolve and change and you get more information, it is important that you use the scientific process to gain that information and perhaps change the way you think of things, change your guidelines, and change your recommendation. And that really goes across the board because you're dealing with something that needs to be modified because it's a moving target. Zika was a moving target. COVID was a moving target.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank the Democratic staff for your minority report. And if it's not already submitted for the record, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to offer into the record the Democratic staff report just completed. Republicans, Fauci flop. Select Committee's 15-month probe fails to find evidence of extreme claims linking Dr. Fauci to COVID-19's origins. And thank the staff. This is an outstanding report that folks should read. Thank you.
Now recognize Ms. Maliotakis from New York for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think many of us in the committee are really disturbed by revelations to this committee that there were officials at NIH that deleted government records, they deleted personal, or they used personal information, personal emails to communicate and circumvent freedom of information laws. So I just had a couple questions about that. Dr. Fauci, did you delete any emails or records related to the Wuhan lab or the origins of the virus?
No, I did not.
Okay. Dr. Morins said in a May 2021 email, he indicated that he was connecting people to you in a, quote, secret back channel. Do you know what he was referring to?
I don't have any idea what he's talking about. There is no back channel at NIAID.
Okay, there is, he also said in another email that there is no worry about Freedom of Information Act. I can send stuff to Tony on his private email. Did you communicate with anyone relating to anything regarding NIH or with Dr. Morins on a private email?
I do not do government business on my private email.
Okay, so have you communicated with Dr. Morins via private email, even if it was not necessarily your definition of government business?
It might have been because, as I mentioned in my opening statement, one of his functions is to write chapters, medical scientific chapters with me, so it is conceivable that I communicated with him on my private email when we were writing a chapter, and that was not official.
What about Peter Daszak?
No.
Okay. I just want to clarify for the record, because today you testified that you did not suppress the lab leak theory, yet in the past you have said, quote, it is a distortion of reality, unquote. You've said, quote, I've heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, they're just conspiracy theories. That's what you told the American people. And so would you like to clarify what science were you following then versus now?
Yeah, no, I've also been very, very clear and said multiple times that I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory. What is conspiracy is the kind of distortions of that particular subject, like it was a lab leak and I was parachuted into the CIA like Jason Bourne and told the CIA that they should really not be talking about a lab leak.
Thank you.
That's the conspiracy.
Appreciate that. Dr. Fauci, how much have you earned from royalties from pharmaceutical companies since the pandemic began in 2021?
Zero.
It says NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers. You're saying that you did not receive any of the $710 million.
On COVID, I received, I think, $122 for a monoclonal antibody that I made 27 years ago.
Okay, so just in general, though, how much have you received, not related to COVID, just in general, how much have you received in royalties between 2021 and 2023?
I think none.
Okay, so somebody received the $710 million.
Somebody did, but not me.
You didn't receive any royalties. Okay.
I mean, I see no royalties associated with COVID. I mentioned.
I said.
No, I want.
No, I just said.
I'm on the record, and I want to make sure that this is clear. That I've developed a monoclonal antibody about 25 years ago that's used as a diagnostic that has nothing to do with COVID, and I receive an average of about $120 a year from that patent.
Okay, but the bottom line here is that scientists at NIH did receive $710 million in royalties, and I guess my question is, don't you think that if these experiments are made using American tax dollars, that any of those royalties, this nearly billions of dollars, should be going back to the American taxpayer, not in the pockets of the scientists? Do you believe that's a law that we should consider changing?
If you want to change the patent laws and the Bayh-Dole Act, then go ahead. Okay. But that's not for me to say.
asking your opinion. Okay, well, anyway, moving on, I just want to say that, we know billions of dollars have been funding these animal experiments, both here domestically and in foreign lands. I'm very troubled by the cruel, horrific animal research that has been done on U.S. land and in foreign laboratories. Taxpayers are footing the bill for billions of dollars. These beagle puppies that have their throats slit, they are being injected with ticks. They are murdered after just a few months. Piglets, rabbits, you name it. FDA is saying we no longer need to be testing human medications on animals, that there's other ways to achieve this. Can you comment on that, if it's time for the United States of America to be moving on from these cruel animal and horrific costly tests?
I'd be happy to comment, but I'm puzzled as to what that has to do with the origins of COVID.
Well, I have a question about it.
Okay,
and
I'd be
before
happy
this
to
committee,
answer.
and it has to do in general with the amount of waste of tax dollars that NIH is using.
Well, the animal experiments that are conducted by and funded by NIH go through strict regulations of the proper use of animals in research. So I'm not, Congressman, with all due respect, I'm not trying to be confrontative. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but the experiments that the NIH funded go through strict regulatory processes of the treatment of animals, the humane treatment of animals.
Well, they're not very humane, and I will say, as the former director, you signed off on these experiments, and so my time has expired, and we will.
Well, I signed off on them because they were approved by a peer review.
Now recognize Ms. Dingell from Michigan for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Instead of actually taking a serious look at the various ways by which this virus could have emerged in a lab or in nature, my Republican colleagues and friends have spent the last 15 months trying to pin blame on NIH, NIAID, and specifically Dr. Fauci for the COVID-19 pandemic. And now, let's bring everything in. Look, I want to have a discussion about animal testing too, but I'm really not sure how that comes into here. But I want to be perfectly clear, though, that the Select Subcommittee has seen no evidence of this. However, allegations by my Republican colleagues, amplified in the media, have led to real, tangible consequences for Dr. Fauci in his personal life in a way that should be unacceptable to all Americans. Dr. Fauci, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm not even going to admit how long. But during that time, I've seen your commitment not just to science, but to advancing the greater good. And I know that this isn't a topic you enjoy discussing, and I'm sorry I'm going to have to ask you about it. But I think the American people need to know what we are doing to those who are serving the common good and public health.
You'll save big at Mathis Home and get store-wide 12-month no-interest financing during the Monumental Savings Event. Get huge markdowns on hundreds of sofas starting at just $3.99. Check out our incredible selection of patio and outdoor furniture and save big. Plus, we're the only place with top-name recliners starting at just $195. Shop online and find over 180,000 items perfect for every room in your house. Come save at the Monumental Savings Event at Mathis Home.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
We're in the nation's capital asking the important questions so that you're in the know. Join us daily, Monday through Friday, on the Capitol Report on NTD News.
We're coming back to Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying before the House Oversight Committee. This is his first public testimony since retiring in late 2022.
Earlier this year, he testified for 14 hours over 2 days about his role in managing the pandemic response, making pandemic-era policy, and shaping public messaging about the origins of COVID-19.
Let's watch that hearing.
Our close, Mr. Chairman, that as many as 40% of public health workers have been bullied, threatened, or harassed. And I think we all need to take that on as a public health issue. I'd ask to enter the letter into the record and yield back.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr.
And now recognize Ms. Lesko from Arizona for 5 minutes of question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Fauci, did the National Institute of Health fund the potentially dangerous, enhanced potential pandemic pathogens, gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology?
I would not characterize it the way you did. The National Institutes of Health, through a sub-award to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, funded research on the surveillance of and the possibility of emerging infections. I would not characterize it as dangerous gain-of-function research. I've already testified to that effect a couple of times.
So you're saying no, correct? In his May 16th,
I'm saying no because I've said no multiple times, including on the transcribed interview.
In his May 16th, 2024 testimony, the NIH Deputy Director Tabak said, and I quote, "I can tell you that the failure of the Wuhan Institute of Virology to provide us with the data that we requested and the lab notebooks that we requested certainly impeded our ability to understand what was really going on with the experiments that we have been discussing this morning." My question to you, Dr. Fauci, if the NIH didn't inspect the Wuhan Institute of Virology and NIH didn't receive the lab books and data from China and the required reports from EcoHealth Alliance were not submitted, in fact, they were late, how can you definitively say that the NIH did not fund the dangerous gain-of-function research?
I go back to what I said, that the gain-of-function research by the operative and regulatory definition of P3CO does not include at all the viruses that were studied under the sub-award.
How do you know that, sir, if there was no lab books, nothing from China?
We know what viruses they were studying.
How? How do you know? You never went there.
I'm telling you that the NIH funded research on these viruses. If someone else somewhere in China was doing something else,
Well,
That
and
was
that's the
not-
problem, because NIH didn't go there. You didn't get the reports that were needed. How in the world would you know? I'm going to go on to the next
Well,
question.
and you're not hearing what I'm saying.
Dr. Morenz, your senior advisor for over 20 years, said in an email dated February 24th, 2021, I learned from your FOIA lady here now how to make emails disappeared when I am FOIA'd, but before the search starts, so I think we are all safe. Plus, I deleted most of these earlier emails after sending them to Gmail. In another email dated 4/21/21, Dr. Morenz said, I forgot to say, there is no worry about FOIAs. I can either send stuff to Tony, meaning you, on his private email or hand it to him at work or at his house. He is too smart to let colleagues send him stuff that could cause trouble. Dr. Fauci, were you ever engaged in attempts to obstruct the Freedom of Information Act and the release of public documents?
No.
Did Dr. Morenz communicate with you about official business using his private email?
Official business? No.
Did you ever encourage Dr. Morenz to use his private email address for official business?
No.
My next question, sir, is on February 1st, 2020, you, yourself, Dr. Fauci, the NIH Director Collins, and at least 11 other scientists were on a conference call to discuss the origins of COVID. A number of the scientists said that they were concerned that COVID was the result of a lab leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and were concerned that a revelation of the lab leak theory would hurt their relationship with China. The CDC Director Redfield testified that he was not invited on this conference call, and he believes because he believed the lab leak theory was possible. 3 days later, on February 4th, 2020, 4 participants on the conference call authored a paper, Proximal Origin, which was sent to you for editing. Proximal Origin pushed the natural origin theory. On April 16, 2020, the NIH director, Dr. Collins, emailed you expressing dismay that the Nature Medicine article, which was based on proximal origin, didn't suppress the lab leak theory, and asked you for more public pressure to suppress the lab leak theory. The very next day, in response to Dr. Collins' request to suppress the lab leak theory, you cited the Nature Medicine article, which discounted the lab leak theory from the White House podium. My question to you, sir, did you cite this article at the White House because the NIH director asked you to suppress the lab leak theory?
I did not do that in response to anybody's suggestion to suppress anything. It was in response to a question that someone asked at the podium. And I did not edit any paper as shown in my official testimony. So you said about 4 or 5 things, Congressman, that were just not true.
Well, we have emails to prove it.
Well, you don't.
Thank you, and I yield back.
I now recognize Mr. Mfume from Maryland for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, no, we don't have it. So I get tired of hearing we've got it, and then when we ask for it, it's not there. We do not have it, Dr. Fauci, and for everyone watching this. That's just incorrect. Now, let me just say a couple of things. If I sound a little outraged, just because, you know, we sit here and we watch one conspiracy theory after another get debunked. And if I might, on a point of personal privilege, to the gentlewoman from New York who wanted to argue that we should be worrying about testing of human medicines on animals. If this committee really wants to do something, let's talk about the most infamous biomedical research study in the United States, the Tuskegee study, where 400 black men in this country were injected deliberately with syphilis and allowed to die slowly over a 40-year period without any attempt to help them at all. It was condoned by the U.S. Public Health Service. And if we want to talk about testing, let's talk about that as well. I'm going to talk about COVID right now. Mr. Chairman, I have the floor, Mr. Chairman. I want to say to you, Mr. Chairman.
I ask you to suspend, please. I want to remind the audience of decorum. Recognize Mr. Mfume.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you and Ranking Member Ruiz for this opportunity. Dr. Fauci, we owe you an apology for the way we have raked you through the mud, and none of us have said to you, here's where you go to get your good name and your reputation back. It's the most unfair thing I have seen. If there were evidence, if there were facts that supported the charges, I, like everybody else, would be interested, but we haven't seen a damn thing to suggest that these accusations are accurate. You've been a hero to many for 54 years, 5+ decades. You helped lead this country through the anthrax scare, through AIDS, through Zika, through Ebola, through SARS, and through COVID-19, pandemics and epidemics. We owe you a collective thank you. You are a world-renowned scientist and an American patriot. And whether or not people want to believe that, that's on them. But those facts are undisputable. For a year and a half, the Republican majority on this committee has sought to weaponize genuine scientific questions over COVID-19 and to vilify our public health officials and our nation's scientists with unsubstantiated, with baseless, with allegations that just can't stand the light of day. And so they've tried to do that with COVID-19, and we are here now as a result of the aggregated amount of foolishness that has taken place. And I've always said to this committee, every time I've had a chance to speak, let's go back to when we were in the heart of the pandemic, when our family members and friends and coworkers were dying left and right, when we were afraid to get near anybody, where we wanted to wash down our groceries before we brought them into the house, where we were willing to put on masks or headgear if it would keep us from being infected. And we turned to our leaders and our public health officials and scientists for answers. And we got some, but then we didn't get some. And then we got some later, like Dr. Deborah Birx, who was Donald Trump's expert on the virus, who said, no, bleach won't do it, don't inject yourself with it, and who also said publicly on the record that thousands of American lives could have been spared if we had done what we were being told to do by the scientific community. At least
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of The Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters? It's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. Let's go. They're always in their own world. How'd you get there? Twice the work. Twice the surprises.
Just try it.
But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling.
I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
Want to know what's really happening around the world? Join us for a deep dive discussion with our expert panel on International Reporters Roundtable.
Welcome back. Dr. Anthony Fauci is testifying publicly for the first time since retiring in 2022.
It was recently revealed that his former advisor bragged about learning how to make emails disappear after Freedom of Information Act requests are filed, potentially shielding agency information from public eyes.
This hearing will focus on that, as well as Dr. Fauci's role in the COVID-19 pandemic response.
Let's tune back.
Prevented infection, but what became clear that it did not prevent transmission when the ability to prevent infection waned.
I think what's troubling is when the American people look at the certainty and the case at which people lost jobs, they lost livelihoods. I had rural hospitals in my area that did not have a single case of COVID in their rural community that had to shut down and people not get care that they did need for cancer, and some passed away because of those kind of things. Time after time again, people's lives are destroyed, and we have not seen the same sort of, once the new data came available, we did not see a change of course. And you'll point out, for example, in the schools that the CDC, put out the guidelines, for example. But we know that those guidelines end up being protection from lawsuits. It's, if you don't want to be sued, you better follow the guidelines. So they're not mandates, de facto mandates, but they turn out to be such a mandate. And when the science began to change, we all understand that in the first few weeks, even a couple months, we were all trying to figure it out. I think there's a lot of grace for that. The concern is that as the science became available, there wasn't like oh, maybe we should consider the lab leak theory. Oh, maybe we should consider natural immunity. We never heard this messaging coming from you or from anyone else who stood on the sidelines talking about these things. And it's left the American people with a tremendous distrust. I want to talk a little bit about the grant process. My understanding from your testimony to us, it says that the NIH process for awarding grants is that basically research proposal goes to peer review committee to receive a priority score. Then it goes to an advisory council for NIH personnel. It receives a final, basically the group votes on it, and then eventually it ends up on your desk for signature, right? Now, you said in that sometimes, if I recall correctly, those grants are often approved in block, in mass, when they're voted on, and then you sign off on them.
That's correct.
This is one of the things that's really troubling to the American people, because they look at their lives being destroyed and there's no one to hold accountable, because these systems of accountability have become systems of plausible deniability. And so your name is on every single grant, but yet you absolve yourself of any sort of responsibility by saying, well, it goes to this committee that's, that has a number of people on it, and they're approved in block, and so there's no accountability for anything, any of the taxpayer dollars that are going forth.
I disagree with you, Congressman, because if you look at the number of grants, we fund thousands of grants. It would be physically impossible for me to go through every single grant in a detailed way to understand it. That is true not only for me, but for virtually every institute at the NIH.
Then why does your signature go on it?
Because somebody has to sign off on it, and you trust the expertise and the competence of the staff that go over it.
And what is the mechanism for holding? Gentleman's time has expired.
I now recognize Ms. Ross from North Carolina for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you, Dr. Fauci, for your voluntary testimony today, also for so much grace in your 14 hours of testimony. And I, again, want to thank you for your service and your patience. It's truly remarkable. Because it bears repeating, let me just remind everyone that after 15 months, my Republican colleagues' extreme allegations against you remain unsubstantiated. Unsubstantiated. And now, during your two-day closed-door interview in January, you discussed a number of topics regarding the public health response to the COVID-19 pandemic, some of which we've touched on briefly, but I just want to dive in a little bit deeper here. For example, you discussed both then and here with Congresswoman Castor the recommendation that we maintain 6 feet of distance between one another to reduce the spread of COVID-19. And you discussed how social distancing recommendations were developed, that you yourself didn't pick this 6 feet, and it was just really kind of a guideline in the moment. In your view, though, do social distancing recommendations and other public health measures to reduce transmission save lives?
Definitely.
Okay. I'd also like to go back and take a deeper dive into the COVID-19 vaccine discussion that we just had. And you were also asked about that during your interview in January. In the Select Subcommittee, we've heard suggestions that the vaccine was ineffective because of breakthrough infections that occur after vaccination. We just heard about that right here. But as I understand it, perhaps the strongest measure of COVID-19 vaccine's effectiveness is the reduction of severe disease and death, not necessarily getting a milder form of COVID. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, it's very clear that when you're dealing with many vaccines, but particularly when you're looking at COVID, as I mentioned, and I'll repeat it quickly for you, that early on there was a degree, not as much as against severe disease, of protection against infection. Unfortunately, that protection against infection, which is related to transmissibility, waned rather rapidly in a matter of months. What has stood firm, well, much better than transmission, and much better than infection, is the ability to prevent someone from hospitalizations and deaths. And in fact, the curves, Congresswoman, are stunning. When you look at the deaths and hospitalizations of people who are unvaccinated, it's like this. When you look at the deaths and hospitalizations for people who are vaccinated and boosted, it's like this. The difference is profound. When you're dealing with infection, again, less so because of the waning of protection against infection.
Well, and that was also confirmed by a Commonwealth Fund December 2022 report that which came out 2 years after the Biden administration's effort to get COVID-19 vaccines in arms, and your effort too, that it prevented more than 3 million deaths and averted 18 million hospitalizations. And that came out in 2002, but it seems to corroborate what you're saying.
Indeed, and $1.15 trillion in healthcare costs.
Thank you for that add. One pillar of the vaccine requirements was to have an increased uptake in the COVID-19 vaccines. And that at the time was supported by leading physicians, including the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Family Physicians, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and more. Were the vaccine requirements a clinically sound tool for improving uptake of a safe and effective vaccine?
Yes, you would like people to get vaccinated voluntarily and realizing the important effect on it. But the fact that people were vaccinated by whatever their motivation was clearly saved many, many lives.
And just with the 17 seconds I have, What steps can public health officials take to bolster confidence in these life-saving interventions since there has been so much misinformation circulating?
That's going to be very difficult, Congresswoman, because there is so much mis and disinformation around that we've got to do a better job of reaching out and trying to get the correct information. But that's difficult when you have a very energetic group of people continually spreading mis and disinformation about vaccines. We've got to be more proactive in putting out the facts and the data and the information that's correct.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and I yield back.
Now recognize Dr. Joyce from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman Wenstrup, for convening this important hearing, and thank you, Dr. Fauci, for testifying. Dr. Fauci, one of the controversial regulations of the pandemic was the 6-foot distancing rule. This rule became an important policy consideration in subsequent regulations. However, you testified recently, and I'm quoting, "This 6-foot rule sort of just appeared." Do you think that a rule that sort of just appeared is substantial justification for the regulations that we saw based on that 6-foot rule?
Congressman, thank you for that question. I answered that, but I'll summarize it briefly for you. When saying it just appeared, it came from the CDC.
Okay, you stated that earlier. What was your relationship with the CDC when you saw a regulation which was not based in the current science?
Well, when I say was not based in science, I meant a prospective clinical trial to determine whether 6 foot was better than 3, was better than 10.
But once we realized that the virus was not spread by droplets and was aerosolized, did you feel an indication to go back to the CDC and said, let's base this on science. Let's get rid of this 6-foot rule. This 6-foot rule crippled businesses. It allowed students to stay at home and not learn. Americans suffered. And that suffering continues because the fracture of trust in American scientists continues to this day. Did you not feel an obligation for something that just sort of appeared, not to go back to the CDC and say, let's base this on what we know?
It was a CDC decision, and it was clear.
Were you dialoguing with the CDC?
Excuse me?
Were you in communication with the CDC?
CDC was part of the coronavirus response team. Yep.
And you didn't feel an obligation to go to them and say, look, Americans aren't going to trust us.
Yeah.
We're providing them with misinformation.
We have discussions at the White House.
Before we head to break, if you have any feedback, please email us at news.today@ntd.com.
Stay with us. We'll have more stories in just a moment.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Are you ready to help your family get prepared for the unexpected?
Everyone in? Here we go!
Ladybug and Cat Noir know how important it is to be ready. Because you never know when Hawkmoth is going to strike, or a disaster will hit. And you don't need miraculous powers. Just put those planning skills you already have to good use. Know who to call, decide on a safe meeting location, and create an emergency preparedness kit. Make a plan that will help you and your family be ready when emergencies happen. Ready Kids can help.
I'm coming to save you!
Get started at ready.gov/kids.
Welcome to NTD News Today.
Here are today's top stories.
An illegal immigrant accused of shooting 2 New York City police officers. The alleged shooter is also a suspect in a series of other crimes.
First son Hunter Biden's historic gun trial begins in Delaware. We'll bring you what's happening both inside and outside the courtroom.
Former President Trump's conviction and President Biden's son on trial. How is all the attention affecting voters, and will third-party candidates benefit?
And confusion over a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release proposal. President Biden announced last week that Israel had put forward a 3-phase deal, but the Israeli minister is now reportedly calling that version incomplete.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy accuses Beijing of helping Russia undermine an upcoming peace summit. That's by pressuring other countries not to attend.
And in the French Open, we will see a new men's champion this year. Will we see a new men's champion this year? NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss Novak Djokovic's matches.
Big question there. And NTD's International Martial Arts Competition is coming to the U.S. this fall after preliminary rounds in Germany and Taiwan. We take a closer look at the competition and the values it's trying to promote.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
You know, Steph, when Biden announced this ceasefire proposal on Friday, it kind of surprised me because it seems to leave Hamas intact. But we know that Israel is not willing to do that. And he's saying that this proposal came from Israel, so it seems strange.
That is surprising. And over in Ukraine, the president there is saying that China's support for Russia could actually extend that war. We're going to look into that and more. Top of the hour, though, 2 New York City police officers were shot in Queens by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. That's according to authorities.
The officers were investigating crime patterns involving motorized scooters.
They observed a male suspect driving a moped the wrong way on 82nd Street near 23rd Avenue and attempted to pull him over. The suspect then fled on foot, and the officers began a foot pursuit, which led for several blocks. During the pursuit, the suspect fired multiple rounds at our officers, who then returned fire.
One officer was shot in the chest, where his bulletproof vest saved him from serious injury. Another was shot in the leg. Both are in stable condition. The officers returned fire and shot the fleeing man in his ankle.
The suspect is wanted in connection with a series of crimes, but he was never arrested. He was taken into custody following the shooting. Police say he was staying at a migrant shelter in Queens after illegally crossing the border down in Eagle Pass, Texas. Authorities in Minnesota have released the name of the gunman who shot and killed a Minneapolis police officer last Thursday. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Office said Mustafa Ahmed Muhammad killed Officer Jamal Mitchell and another person before officers shot and killed him. 4 other people, including a firefighter and another officer, were wounded in the attack. The officer and the firefighter are out of the hospital. The other 2 victims were hospitalized as of Friday. Police initially responded to an apartment complex for a report of a shooting. Investigators say Mitchell approached Mohammed thinking he was a shooting victim. That's when Mohammed opened fire. It's unclear what prompted the attack.
And another historic trial that could impact the outcome of the presidential election is underway. President Biden's son, Hunter, is the first child of a sitting U.S. president to face federal criminal charges.
The trial will focus on allegedly untruthful statements that the younger Biden made on a form to receive a firearm in 2018. NTD's Jack Bradley is at the federal courthouse in Washington, Delaware. Jack, what's the latest on this?
Hey, how are you guys? It's good to hear from you. You know, attorneys are now selecting from a jury pool of 250 jurors, narrowing it down to 12 with 4 alternates here. Hunter Biden is facing 3 charges related to filling out the gun form while under the influence or addicted to, rather, crack cocaine back in 2013. Now, the prosecutors will use excerpts from his memoir and text messages around the time of the gun purchase, which suggests that he was using crack cocaine at the time when he purchased the weapon. The defense will try to cast doubts on the who filled out the form, if it was filled out incorrectly, and if he was actually even still addicted to crack cocaine at the time, as he had just completed a rehabilitation program prior to getting that. Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed a special prosecutor to this case to stop the doubt of bias on this case, and Hunter Biden has been very public with his drug addiction. If convicted on all charges here, he could face a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison and a fine of up to $750,000. He's pleaded not guilty to all of these charges, and he was joined today by his stepmom, First Lady Jill Biden, and his stepsister Ashley Biden, arriving here this morning to support him. His wife is here as well. Hunter, as you said earlier, is the first child of a sitting president to stand trial, and the publicity of this trial could have impacts on President Biden's reelection bid. Back to you.
All right, Jack Bradley in Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you.
Recent polls show President Biden and former President Trump locked in a tight race.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and the sentiments of voters in the wake of Trump's recent New York conviction.
Business owner Margaret Barnes isn't overly impressed with either candidate. Biden strikes her as being artificial and insincere. Barnes doesn't buy what she sees as the nice old guy telling stories bit.
And with Trump, he's bombastic, and he's, in that world of gold toilets and champagne and caviar and golf courses and Saudi princes. But even though what he says can be offensive, I believe him a lot more.
Barnes says Republicans and Democrats are 2 wings of the same vulture. The business owner says independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. represents a lifetime opportunity to vote for someone who you actually want instead of the lesser of 2 evils.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is someone who really understands the intricacies of government. He understands corporate capture. He's like a neurosurgeon who is cutting out this cancer, and he can do it very precisely because he knows where all the bodies are buried.
Business owner Arkady Lapidus grew up in the Soviet Union. He says he takes dictatorship very seriously.
I know what it's like. I know what happens when fanatical people get a hold of the mechanics of government and use it as a form of oppression. It's unimaginable to me as a lifelong Republican that any Republican would vote for Donald Trump. But that is what's happened.
Lapidus says once people take over the machinery of repression, wherever that happens to be, that it's too late to fight them at that point, something he feels most Americans don't understand.
They still think it's a game, that politics is a game. We've had, free elections for so long, and people have given a power that it's like the stock market. Past returns don't necessarily signal future results, right? Just because we've had, 106 the Civil War, we've had 160 years of freedom, doesn't mean it's going to keep going.
Tucker McConville doesn't plan to vote. He says he likes to play sports, work, and take care of his child.
I see Biden, and I'm like a young, athletic, fit guy, and he's just kind of old. He just looks old and frail and sick. And
McConville feels both candidates are tainted. The trucker says he has strong faith and tries to stay in God's will.
How could I be in God's will and voting for guys that's not keeping their word, you know? And no, there's nothing. There's nothing Trump could do that I would vote for him. Would I rather have Trump in office? Yeah, I would. But I'm not going to vote for him.
Current Real Clear polling averages show Trump with a lead of 0.5% over Biden in the 2024 election. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Supreme Court is making another decision on electoral maps, this time for Arkansas. The High Court is sending a dispute over the state's decision to redraw districts back to a lower court. Black voters and politicians sued the new map, arguing that it sought to minimize the impact of black voters.
Republicans hold all 4 congressional districts in Arkansas and drew the contested map. The Supreme Court is asking a lower court to review the case in light of a high court decision last month on South Carolina's electoral map.
In the South Carolina case, the justices kept the new map in place and said there's not enough evidence to show it was drawn based on race.
In the Arkansas case, the lower court had also previously ruled in favor of the new map. Dr. Anthony Fauci is testifying before Congress on the origins of COVID-19 and the U.S. response to the pandemic. Lawmakers on the House Select Subcommittee on the pandemic are questioning him on his role in the outbreak.
The accusation being circulated that I influenced these scientists to change their minds by bribing them with millions of dollars in grant money is absolutely false and simply preposterous. I had no input into the content of the published paper. The second issue is a false accusation that I tried to cover up the possibility that the virus originated from a lab. In fact, the truth is exactly the opposite.
This is Fauci's first public testimony since retiring as director of the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
Fauci continued to deny allegations that he helped cover up the lab leak theory in the early stages of the pandemic. The rest of his testimony touted how fast the U.S. was able to develop the vaccine.
Fauci's testimony came as a nonprofit government watchdog released a report on the National Institutes for Health, or NIH.
OpenTheBooks.com reports that secret royalty payments from drug companies to scientists, researchers, executives, and other employees of the NIH exploded following the pandemic in 2021. The NIH is comprised of multiple federal institutes, including the one Fauci directed.
And Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has an announcement for her constituents. She's been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She says it's likely she'll be absent from Congress at times. She says that the people that she represents in Texas district will still be able to use the services of her office. Jackson Lee has served in the House of Representatives since 1995. She's a member of the Judiciary, Homeland Security, and Budget Committees. In a news release posted to social media platform X, she wrote, "The road will not be easy, but she stands in faith that God will strengthen her."
And confusion over a Gaza ceasefire proposal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly said that the claim that his country agreed to a ceasefire without Israel's conditions being met is not true.
According to multiple reports, the statement was made at a meeting with the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Security Committee.
It comes amid growing doubts about Israel's stance on the agreement. President Biden unexpectedly announced Friday he was presenting a truce proposal from Israel that had been conveyed to Hamas.
Netanyahu also said today that Israel's top Gaza priority is destroying Hamas, adding that it would be pursued along with hostage recovery. He noted that both goals were in a plan to wind down the war, approved at the highest level of his government.
Meanwhile, an Israeli who went missing during the October 7th Hamas terror attack was found dead in the border village where he lived. Israel's military confirmed the remains after lengthy forensics. The man had left his house to provide medical care during the massacre and was thought to be a hostage. Thousands in New York City marched in solidarity with Israel over the weekend, demanding the return of hostages. Organizers say 60,000 gathered peacefully on Fifth Avenue yesterday. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more.
The Parade for Israel in New York City focused on solidarity as the war in Gaza casts a grim shadow. People chanted "Bring them home now" and waved Israeli flags as they marched along Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. among them the families of some hostages held in Gaza.
I'm Liran Berman. I'm the elder brother of twins, Gali and Ziv Berman. They were both kidnapped from their rooms in Kibbutz Kfar Aza on October 7th. It's been almost 8 months now that they have been hostages by the terrorist group of Hamas. We know that they are alive.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul led Sunday's march. She promised to pass laws to protect Jewish people in U.S. institutions.
We will continue to fight the scourge of anti-Semitism, which has reared its ugly head in unspeakable ways even in our home state.
New York State Attorney General Letitia James emphasized the importance of solidarity in times of crisis.
One coalition, one human family, all of us struggling against hate and all of those who hate us.
Also in attendance, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Bring them home! Bring them home! Bring them home!
Security was tight for the parade. The NYPD blocked several streets, deployed officers with rifles, and had drones patrolling from the air. Crowds of spectators and hundreds of police officers lined the route, and steel barricades were installed along the sidewalk. Prior to the event, New York City Mayor Eric Adams held a briefing alongside the police commissioner and other officials. They described what the city was doing to ensure the peaceful protest went smoothly.
But we wanted to show the unified force that we are not going to allow any unlawfulness and any disruption of any celebration of one's heritage in this city.
Adams said Sunday his office felt pressure from some to cancel this parade, but in his words, the loudest is not the majority. Some Jewish protesters opposed to the war held a small counter-protest, but police kept them away from the parade. The annual parade in the past was called Celebrate Israel, but this year's organizers renamed it Israel Day on 5th Parade. They said the atmosphere has been toned down because of the war, as well as outbursts of anti-Semitism worldwide. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Coming up after the break, Spotify is hiking prices yet again, less than a year after its last increase. We'll tell you if you're going to be affected.
And Texas unveils a classical education curricula that incorporates Texas and American exceptionalism. What we know about it and what's driving the change. That and more here on NTD News Today.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
We've been spending a lot more time than ever at home these days. So maybe now you've just noticed cold air coming in from a couple windows, or that your patio door isn't closing fully, which means you're losing heat in the winter, losing cooling in the summer, losing money all year long. And that means now is the time for new windows and patio doors from Renewal by Andersen. Most installations are usually done in just one day. Renewal by Andersen windows and doors can help lower your heating bills and air conditioning bills with their most energy efficient glass available. Only their windows are made with Fibrex material, proven to be 2 times stronger than vinyl, and they're backed by a 20-year warranty. And right now, when you buy one window or patio door, get one at 40% off. Plus, there's no money down, no payments for 12 months, and no interest for 12 months. Plus, an additional $200 off your entire purchase.
1-800-968-1443.
We're in the nation's capital asking the important questions so that you're in the know. Join us daily, Monday through Friday, on the Capitol Report on NTD News.
Welcome back. A developing situation with the stock market. The New York Stock Exchange is investigating a technical issue after certain stocks were affected by dramatic price fluctuations.
The announcement came as Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway and dozens of other stocks were halted.
New York Stock Exchange trading data wrongly showed Berkshire Hathaway down 99%.
The shares of AMC Entertainment, Chipotle, and GameStop were also affected.
The New York Stock Exchange said the technical issue is related to a mechanism designed to prevent stock prices from swinging wildly.
And joining us now is NTD's Business Matters host, Don Ma, to give us the latest updates on that and more. Don, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Good to have you, Don. What do you have for us?
Speaking of GameStop, that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. All right, so what's happening is GameStop, interesting development actually here this morning on Wall Street. So shares of GameStop shot up nearly 73%, and that is not a mistake here in early pre-market trading. So the surge happened in the hours after the trading influencer known as Roaring Kitty. He posted an image of what appears to be showing a position of nearly $116 million worth of stock. So we couldn't verify the authenticity of that image. But today's jump in shares for the video game retailer is a sign that so-called meme stocks that traders have targeted for a few years now are still in full force here. So meme stocks are shares that swing wildly in value based on their popularity among trader communities on social media, for example, rather than the company's fundamentals and their characteristics.
All right, and Spotify is increasing its prices again. Why is that?
Yeah, so apparently it's doing that, and this is less than a year since its previous price hike for most of its subscription plans. So the latest price hike comes as streaming media companies face rapidly increasing costs of doing business. And as well, consumers continue to sour over rising prices of goods as inflation, as we all know, remain high right now. So beginning in July, Spotify's US subscribers will pay $1 more per month. And that is going to be for its ad-free premium plan. So the cost will be rising to $11.99 per month. This is a $20 increase over the past 2 years. And the audio streamer said that it's increasing prices to continue to invest in and innovate on product features and bring users the best experience. So $1 more.
Interesting, but if you're a student, there's some good news because the student pricing remains at $5.99 per month.
Okay, well, I guess students dodged that bullet there.
Right. All right, Don Ma, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Teaching American exceptionalism in Texas public schools. Newly proposed K-12 curricula will incorporate the idea in reading and math lessons. The new curricula will also utilize the classics like C.S. Lewis's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Shakespeare to teach kids. It's a response to parents outraged by critical race theory and LGBTQ curricula in their children's classrooms. Epoch Times reporter Darlene Sanchez has been following this. I spoke with her. Darlene Sanchez, great to see you. Good to have you back on the show. First, tell us about this proposed classical education curricula in Texas. What is it?
Well, basically, it is probably what many of us would recognize as a typical education. It was based on, Western civilization. The Western canon is what they call it. Classical literature, Greeks, Romans, mythology, Shakespeare, things like that, the things that most people probably grew up learning something about, and that nowadays in modern educational settings, they've moved away from that in many, many cases.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about the circumstances in Texas public schools and really schools across the country that brought about this proposed curriculum.
Well, what happened was, in Texas and some of the other conservative states, there was a big push to get rid of critical race theory and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the colleges. So this really was Texas's, it was a further step that they took this time around when, they met during the legislative session, this past one. And what they decided was that they wanted to have a curriculum that was more of a traditional curriculum that could be offered to schools. And they were very, I thought, very insightful, and also saying that, these schools do not have to accept this curriculum. There's others out there. But if they do accept this curriculum, which is traditional, they get state dollars to help pay for it. So it could actually save them millions of dollars. So, it's a very good incentive if, these districts want to use it. And of course, though, all of these curricula, no matter whether it comes from the Texas Education Agency, TEA, or from some other place, it has to be approved by the State Board of Education in Texas. So they've really put a bunch of safeguards in their educational system now to make sure that, American exceptionalism is taught. Texas exceptionalism is taught in this situation, because that was a complaint by many of the parents. They were seeing things like CRT, gender ideology, LGBTQ put into pretty much all the subject matters, and they were rebelling against that. So this, I think, was Texas's answer to trying to be more open to what the parents are saying, and giving parents a chance to see this curriculum, because it'll be free and it'll be online to anyone who wants it.
And you mentioned that this curriculum is a response to, among other things, DEI, CRT. Explain what these are and why they're so damaging. Why are parents pushing away from these things?
Exactly. Well, I think during COVID, whenever all these classes went online and parents were at home, they got to see firsthand what their children were being taught, because it was, on the Chromebooks or on computers. So what they noticed was that they were telling their kids things that they themselves, hadn't even addressed with them, in some situations, I guess, sexual orientation, LGBT issues. But beyond that, they were also saying things like, trying to, it sounded like, shame the children and saying, if you're white, then you're bad because your race is responsible for systemic racism. All the bad things that have happened in the past since the very beginning we America, had slavery, that is all your fault at this point because you are white and your ancestors did this to their ancestors. So therefore we have to atone for this by getting rid of this systemic racism.
All right, Darlene Sanchez, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up after the break, farmers block a highway at the border between France and Spain. They're protesting environmental rules set up by the European Union ahead of an important election.
And dozens of World War II veterans arrive in France ahead of the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Hear their stories and a message for younger generations. That and more when we come back.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
Do you believe in Jesus?
The one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
We'll walk straight out of here, pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here. I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Loan, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Salvation is a gift.
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of The Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
Losing the fear of looking foolish comes with age.
Who did you steal him from?
Losing your way in your own home doesn't. Confusion with time and place may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Mom, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's.
Hi, I'm Kelly Wright. We thank you for joining us and watching America's Hope here on NTD News. Bottom line is, I know you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but let's give you some good news in the midst of the bad news. Watch us nightly, right here on NTD News, for a full dose of America's Hope.
China's top intelligence agency is now accusing a Chinese couple of spying for Britain. The announcement comes after the UK charged at least 4 men of spying for China in the past 2 months. China's Ministry of State Security posted on social media today saying it uncovered a major espionage case involving 2 Chinese citizens who were allegedly recruited by Britain's Foreign Intelligence Agency, or MI6.
According to the Post, the couple surnamed Wang and Zhou reportedly worked for China's Central State Agency. They allegedly collected the Chinese regime's state secrets and handed them over to the UK.
Beijing said the investigation is still ongoing and did not disclose further information. London hasn't commented on the matter.
The accusations come as tensions are rising between China and the UK. The 2 countries have clashed over the CCP's suppression of free speech and open elections in Hong Kong, a former British territory. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is accusing China of pressuring other countries to skip a peace conference in Switzerland. This is President Zelenskyy at the recent Asia Defense Summit.
Russia using Chinese influence in the region, using Chinese diplomats also, does everything to disrupt the peace summit.
Switzerland is set to host the international summit next weekend. The focus is Zelenskyy's peace proposals, which require Moscow to withdraw all its troops from Ukraine.
China's proposed a contrasting plan earlier this year, which aligns with Moscow's goals. China claims to have a neutral position on the war. The U.S. and most of Europe see its position as pro-Russian.
That's due to the close defense engagement and increasing trade between Beijing and Moscow, especially after Western sanctions on Russia following the invasion of Ukraine.
China has indicated that it won't attend the summit. Russia is not invited.
And now we have some short headlines from the UK, Germany, and elsewhere in Europe. Spanish farmers gathered to block a highway at a border of France and Spain days before European Union residents vote in the European Parliament elections.
Hundreds of farmers drove their tractors onto the highway at the border, causing congestion. The move follows similar protests in the European Union earlier this year against what farmers say are unfair farming laws and unfair competition.
The 27-nation European Union has already weakened some parts of its flagship Green Deal environmental policies, removing a goal to cut farming emissions from its 2040 climate roadmap.
The European election kicks off on Thursday, but most of the bloc's countries will cast their ballots on Sunday.
Parts of southern Germany remain submerged after heavy rain in recent days caused severe flooding. Officials said 4 people have died.
Locals explained they had never before seen such huge amounts of water. Several thousand people were forced to leave their homes.
A 42-year-old firefighter died while trying to save trapped residents. German media reported that body of a missing woman was found in a flooded basement.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited the area today, while Germany's Vice Chancellor and Bavaria's State Premier visited the affected area and met with rescue services yesterday.
Local media and police in Romania reported a foreign citizen was detained in Romania's capital on Monday for allegedly attacking the entrance of the Israeli embassy with a Molotov cocktail. He caused a small fire, but there were no casualties.
Anti-terrorism officers from the Romanian intelligence service apprehended a man before police arrived at the scene. Local media described the suspect as a Syrian national, and police in Bucharest added that he allegedly also tried to set himself on fire.
According to a police spokesperson speaking to local news channel Digi24, the incident was motivated by personal grievances rather than the international context of Israel's ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip.
The Israeli embassy confirmed the incident in an official statement.
And in the country of Georgia, the Speaker of Parliament announced that he gave the final endorsement today to a controversial foreign agents bill.
The bill requires media, NGOs, and other nonprofits to register as pursuing the interests of a foreign power if they receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad.
The bill had prompted weeks of protests. Critics say it will restrict media freedoms and jeopardize Georgia's chances of joining the European Union. The Speaker signed the bill into law after lawmakers dismissed the veto of the Georgian president.
As the bill progresses through the parliament, Georgia is experiencing renewed demonstrations.
It was a hero's welcome in France. 66 U.S. veterans of World War II arrived in Paris Saturday ahead of D-Day anniversary celebrations. They're part of a dwindling number of World War II veterans who will be in Normandy on June 6th to mark the anniversary of the Allied invasion.
The 80th anniversary of D-Day is nearly here, and the role Allied soldiers played has not been forgotten.
7,000 of my Marine buddies were killed. 20,000 shot up, wounded, put on ships, buried at sea.
France honored the veterans with a hero's welcome. The U.S. sent many of the heroes who were present at the pivotal battle of World War II.
Today, we remember your bravery on the beaches of Normandy and in so many other places marked by history. By serving your country, you have liberated ours.
Each veteran has their own story and memories to share.
I dropped my first speech at first bomb at 6:58 a.m. in a heavy gun emplacement between Sword Beach and Cannes. We went back home, we landed at 9:30, reloaded and talked about 3 o'clock, and we bombed Argentina, which is about 30 miles south of the beaches, trying to keep the Germans bringing the troops up.
The sheer scale of the invasion still surprises him decades later.
And that day I could see a big chunk of the beach with all the thousands of vessels in it. I still don't understand how they can get 7,000 vessels and 42,000 landing craft.
Many veterans of this era were reluctant to share their stories.
We did our job and we came home, and that's it. We never talked about it. I didn't, for 70 years, I didn't talk about it. And I got the French Legion of Honor.
Now, many of them want to make sure their stories are told before it's too late.
I want the younger people, the younger generation here, to know what we did.
This veteran summarizes the importance of the invasion.
We saved the war. We saved 29,000 Air Force personnel. And the big question throughout America, was it worth it? Yes. We shortened the war. We saved 29,000 Air Force personnel. It was over. I believe that, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
The veterans were happy and honored to be part of the commemoration events.
My heart is full. My heart is full.
The youngest World War II veteran on the flight was 96, while the oldest was 107. There were also 2 Rosie the Riveters among the veterans, representing women who worked in factories and shipyards during the war. Almost 160,000 Allied troops, 73,000 from the U.S., landed at Normandy on June 6, 1944. Over 4,000 Allied troops were killed on D-Day itself, including over 2,500 Americans. Over 5,000 were wounded. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And up ahead, NTD's International Martial Arts Competition is coming to the U.S. this fall after preliminary rounds in Germany and Taiwan. We take a closer look at the competition and the values it's trying to promote.
And a tourist is accused of defacing an ancient Roman building that survived the volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. We'll return with that and more after this break.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
The biggest investigation in FBI history.
There are more than 1,100 arrests.
I sacrificed my dream job to share this information with the American people.
Those involved must be held accountable.
He's an innocent man.
It's going to change narratives no matter what your political perspective is.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind,
you're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The way it's down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
For the day's top headlines and the news you need to know, tune in right here to NTD Evening News.
And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, another busy weekend in sports, but let's start with some breaking news from the NFL. Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson reportedly received a contract for $140 million. Where does that rank him?
Very high. He's now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Now, this is a 4-year deal. $110 million of the $140 million is guaranteed. Now, this is all according to ESPN, which broke the news this morning. Now, the $35 million yearly average, that's ahead of Nick Bosa's $34 million average. He had the highest non-quarterback before this. But Jefferson, he's definitely been worth it. He's had 3 Pro Bowls in his 4 years. He's got over 1,000 yards every single season. He's been very good. I will be interested to see how he does this year without Kirk Cousins throwing him the ball. Now, Cousins signed with Atlanta in the offseason. So I'm not sure who Minnesota is going to replace him with. Obviously, a quarterback is a big part of the passing game, though.
Okay, now, Dave, looking at the French Open, Rafael Nadal is out. Novak Djokovic was nearly eliminated Saturday, though he did survive. Does it seem like we'll see a new champion this year?
I mean, it obviously looked like that Saturday. You know, he was down 2-1, then he roared back to win the final 2. But that match lasted 4.5 hours. That's a marathon match in tennis. He's still got 4 more wins to go. Now, he's in action right now against Francisco Cerundolo. Djokovic did win the first set, but Cerundolo actually took the second one, and he leads him in the third, so he's in another dogfight today. But of course, between Djokovic and Nadal, they've won 17 of the last 19 French Open titles. Nadal has 14 of those. The only other 2 guys to win in there were Roger Federer and Stan Wawrinka, so it's been a very exclusive club. Now, on the women's side, 2-time reigning champion Iga Swiatek, she's into the quarterfinals, as well as Coco Gauff. Now, Gauff has lost to Swiatek each of the last 2 years. Swiatek is the reigning 2-time women's champion.
Now let's look at the ice. The Florida Panthers and Edmonton Oilers won their respective conferences and will meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. Who's the favorite to win here?
Yeah, Florida Panthers are generally the betting favorites. Now, they just beat the New York Rangers, who had the best record in the league. This is their 2nd straight time in the Stanley Cup Finals and 3rd overall, but they've yet to win the title. Now, they're a very much more balanced team. Now, Edmonton, they're a very good team as well. They pulled the upset to beat Dallas to get here. Edmonton, though, is known much more for its offense. We've got Connor McDavid and company leading the way, though. Edmonton has not been this far since 2006. They've won a title since 1990. If they do pull this off, they'll be the first Canadian franchise to win this in more than 3 decades. I think Montreal back in 1993 was the last to do so.
All right, Dave Martin, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Dave.
This summer, martial artists from around the world will gather to compete for the title of Martial Arts Master. NTD's 8th annual International Martial Arts Competition aims to revive traditional martial arts and presents its true values to the world. Here's a closer look.
The 8th International Traditional Chinese Martial Arts Competition will begin in June, hosted and sponsored by NTD Television. The competition invites martial artists from several schools to assist in a revival of traditional martial arts and to help present its true values to the world. The competition's stated mission is to promote traditional Chinese martial arts, propagate martial morality, and revive the true, divinely inspired traditional Chinese culture.
In fact, the most important connotation of traditional Chinese martial arts is martial virtue. Martial virtue means distinguishing good from evil, believing in cause and effect, believing that good and evil will be rewarded, stopping evil and promoting good. This is the martial virtue we promote.
Traditional martial arts are known to put emphasis on the complete coordination of physical movements, strength, energy, spirit, and other factors.
Everyone knows these three things if they study them carefully. If you have all the other basic skills but don't have these three, you can't be the champion. So we don't distinguish between races, whether Chinese or Westerners or people from any other country or skin color, but you must practice traditional martial arts.
The competition will kick off its preliminary rounds this June through August, with the finals starting in September. The competition is split into men's, women's, and junior groups who compete in the weapons and/or boxing category. The winner will receive a $5,000 prize plus a sword made by a master swordsmith. Traditional Chinese martial arts has a long history and a well-developed system of theories and routines. But many of them were destroyed as the Chinese Communist Party took control of the country. The loss deeply affected martial arts master and former champion Yu Fu Li, who's also the competition's head judge.
When I was in mainland China, there were no people in Wudang and Shaolin at that time. They were all empty. After the Cultural Revolution, they were all empty. Those who moved in later were people who are new to martial arts. They live there. Just use some gymnastics, dance, or acrobatic movements to replace martial arts. It is a bit sensational and showy, but it also has its difficulty. And it can also satisfy some laymen. It looks lively, but it doesn't have the real connotation of traditional martial arts.
Li highlighted that although new martial arts focuses on fighting, traditional martial arts embodies a deeper wisdom and connotation in its movements.
What does the champion want to do? He wants to cultivate his family and govern the country. Because he wants to do this and serve the country with loyalty, he wants to fight and kill the enemy. Martial ethics, must be shown.
He also pointed out that traditional martial arts prioritizes ethics and emphasizes the importance of what he called stopping evil and promoting good over speed or attack power.
I said that if a teacher teaches martial arts and fights without talking about martial arts ethics, teaching martial arts ethics and not talking about martial arts ethics, he is cultivating a violent person, which has no virtue.
Preliminary rounds will begin in June for Germany and Taiwan, with rounds in the United States starting in August. The finals will be held in New Jersey on September 2nd and broadcast live online around the world. This is NTD News, New York.
And over to Europe now, where a Dutch tourist has been identified after allegedly painting graffiti on the wall of a Roman house in Italy. It happened in an archaeological park on the outskirts of Naples. The 27-year-old is accused of defacing the building, which survived the volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Italian police and surveillance personnel were notified of the vandalism yesterday evening.
Authorities say the man was spending his vacation in Italy. The tourist left his signature on the ancient wall with a permanent black marker.
Police didn't say whether the tourist was still in the country or had returned to the Netherlands.
The suspect will be charged with damage and defacement of artwork.
And in health news, peppermint is known for its refreshing flavor and cooling properties. It's a go-to for summer teas and for a year-round herbal ally, really. But here's more on how to enjoy it from Gina Marie with Strong Mind and Body.
Peppermint's refreshing taste is widely loved by many. It's often added into beverages, culinary dishes, and various medicinal and cosmetic products. Peppermint is used in both Western and Chinese medicine. It has a long history of medicinal applications that has been documented in ancient Chinese texts. Peppermint is often harvested in summer for tea making. It can help to clear heat from the body and prevent heat stroke. Consuming a small amount of peppermint can soothe the visceral nerves, acting as a cooling agent. It can also reduce bloating and promote digestion. Peppermint oil has a notable impact on gastrointestinal function. It can induce smooth muscle relaxation and alleviate spasms in various digestive organs. Additionally, peppermint oil exhibits the ability to regulate sensitivity in both the visceral and central nervous systems. Peppermint oil also shows potential as a therapeutic option for addressing irritable bowel syndrome. After being absorbed into the bloodstream, it can dilate the skin's capillaries and increase sweat gland secretion. This offers sweat-inducing and fever-reducing effects. In traditional Chinese medicine, peppermint is believed to disperse stagnation and regulate qi. Qi is a Chinese name that describes all types of human vital energies. Peppermint can also address chest and rib pain caused by liver qi stagnation. Furthermore, peppermint leaf extract can inhibit the growth of blood vessels in cancerous lesions. This deprives tumors of their blood supply. This eventually leads to their starvation and death, making peppermint beneficial in fighting cancer. When applied topically to the skin, peppermint exhibits antibacterial properties. This can numb peripheral nerves and provide relief from pain and itching. Additionally, holding a peppermint leaf in the mouth can kill oral bacteria and help to reduce inflammation. And in closing, peppermint oil is used widely in traditional Chinese medicine to alleviate symptoms like fever, headache, nasal congestion, and dizziness.
Some great tips there. Well, for round-the-clock original news coverage, you can visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
And be sure to stick around for NTD Newsroom at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll cover more stories from the U.S. and around the world.